Peace. This is King Noble Black Supremacy.com. And with this particular video, I want to extract the meaning out of the Nipsey Hussle transition. Many of you all have already heard and seen some of the graphic footage of what happened to Nipsey Hussle. The rapper who was shot dead in Crenshaw district of Los Angeles. Many of you saw that and you are aware of that, so I don't really have to go all the way into the story, but we know that this brother was a somewhat pro-black, bi-black type individual who was looking out for the community on some level, who had an inspiring message of wealth and ownership for black people, and who also intended on doing a documentary on the late great Dr. Sebi, who was known to have cured many different diseases or ailments, who've alleged to have cured AIDS, and was just trying to heal the black community. That this was a documentary that this brother wanted to work on and put out, along with his other achievements as being a rapper and buying back his block and opening up black-owned businesses where he employed his own community. Many people say that the government killed him. Some say a black person killed him. I don't see a difference. Black people make up the government. The government is made up of snitches, informants, and federal agents of all nationalities and ethnicities. So that the black person that killed him was a government agent is not as an insignificant detail. He was still black, whether he was a government agent or not. That's the point that I'm making. So he still died at the hands of a black person. They killed someone that looked just like themselves in their community for any reason. He was a victim of gun violence by the hands of somebody black. It was black on black violence, irregardless of whatever reason or agenda or whatever group or organization that was perpetuated. He was killed by a black person. Some authorities want to argue and say that it is not gang related, but I beg to differ. Because if it was related to someone who was in a gang, it was gang related. It's the politics of gang culture, gang affiliation, and a gang-minded and gang-centered environment. Now, even if it was a federal agent that killed him, the FBI ain't nothing but a gang too. The LAPD ain't nothing but a gang. And American society is many different gangs and factions of gangs that call themselves by other names. They call themselves organization, they call themselves law enforcement. They go by the names of corporations, fraternities, cliques. They're all gangs, they're all the same. They operate as gangs, they move like gang units, and they're very brutal in their objectives and the manner in which they carry out these objectives. So it could be in any gang. Gang culture is American culture. So he didn't have to be a Blood or Crip to be gang related. And if the individual involved was gang affiliated or influenced by gang, and it happened in an environment where gangbangers associate, then to me it is still gang related or the consequence or byproduct of gangsterism. So that solves it for me too. Whether it was a government agent, don't matter. because a snitch or an informant is a government agent and helps maintain and sustain the agenda of government agencies. They would not exist or be as successful in their undertakings if it was not for snitches and informants, so they make up the government. Period. Matter of fact, government and gang banging, to me, is one and the same. They both work together for the same objective. They are a part of the institution of white supremacy and staples in the prison industrial complex. Law enforcement and gang banging, to me, works hand in hand. It is the politics of the community. So that answers it. Yes, it was done by a government agency, and it was black-on-black violence and black-on-black crime, and it was all gang-related. These are just people playing with narratives. They are all the same. Irregardless, we lost a valuable black life, and black lives do matter. Whether they are taken at the hands of white racists, white supremacists, or police officers, or taken by the guns and weapons of their own brothers, black lives still matter, and that is a tragedy, and it's very sad that we lost that beloved brother who was a father and who was a husband and was a beacon of light in his community for many people. That is a tragedy, however you spin it. And it would not be less a tragedy if it was a black government agent or just a regular black person or a black person or a gang. It would not matter. Or what affiliation or alphabet or hand sign or logo or emblem that they came with. It would all hurt the same way. And it is a pain of violence in this community as it is inflicted upon the black man in this society. It is very sad, very tragic, and very unfortunate. But there is light at the end of the tunnel because all of the works of Nipsey Hussle came to life. In the moment of his death, he was martyred, and more light was shed on the positivity that he presented to his very own community, and also the positivity of those of whom he looked up to and found inspiration in, like Dr. Sebi. His death has exposed a very large population of black people to health consciousness and to expose the treacherous and corrupt practices of the pharmaceutical industry. So his death has meaning and his death has value, and there is a lot that we can learn from it, and as due to his death, there will be an expansion of consciousness in the overall black community as a whole, that they will be more conscious as due to his transition, and that is the light at the end of the tunnel. Now, I want to make this message after we have dealt with all the other stuff. I want to bring the message out of it that I got. You have to get out of the block. Don't stay in the block mind. Come out of the block. Come out of that mentality. Come out of that consciousness. Don't buy back the block. Don't buy back the hood. Invest yourself in another dimension of reality. Step on out of that. That doesn't mean don't support the hood. Don't support your community. It just means you have to take yourself out of that low frequency and low vibrational situation that ends up in black death. You have to come out of that. You have to come out of the block. You have to get out the matrix. You don't control it. It's already rigged for black death, and your money is not going to give you a better position. Your money is not going to save you. Your money is not going to give you hope in a hopeless circumstance. You have to come out of that circumstance consciously. You have to have a paradigm shift. Get out of the block. And then you got to get out of the block long enough to get the block out of you. And then when you get out the block long enough to get the block out of you, now you can begin the process of transformation of the conscience of those who have been trapped in the block, who are stuck on the block, who are hugging the block, who are living in that energy of the block, because it's beyond property, it's beyond real estate. It is a consciousness that is materialistic, that is envious, that is jealous, that is self-hating, that is in lack. And that is the consciousness of the block, consciousness of the street, consciousness of the hood. And that's not going to change because you buy the real estate. That's not going to change because you own the stores. That's not going to change. It is an oppressive situation that is maintained by the institutions of white supremacy. It is the way the haves maintain the have-nots. And you cannot buy land in have-not town. You cannot purchase real estate in have-not city. Because even though you buy it, we still have not. Because we have not the knowledge of ourselves. We have not the value of our existence. We can't see the value of real estate to this. We see the value of humanity. We can't see value of land until we see the value of humanity. You can buy the block, but you cannot buy consciousness. Consciousness can only be given. It can only be donated. It can only be contributed. It can only be shared. It can only be exemplified. You cannot buy consciousness. You must completely step into it. And that requires you to get out the block, to leave the block, to no longer be blocked from the infinite potential that you possess as a human being to expand your consciousness beyond the grid that your oppressor and enemy created for you, because that is the limits of his consciousness. You must get out of the concrete jungle. Expand your consciousness. Don't buy back the block. You cannot purchase stolen goods that was taken from indigenous people. You can't buy it back. It's already stolen. And it is a stolen consciousness that dwells within it. It is the consciousness of the thief. It is the consciousness of the robber. It is the consciousness of the extorter. It is the consciousness of the exploiter that has become the capitalism that is on your blocks, that is in your neighborhood, that allow people to go hungry and people to go without, while the rich get richer and the poor get poor. Allow people to live in destitute conditions while other people flourish and ascend. That situation has to change. That situation has to be transformed. So you can't buy the block. Capitalism ain't gonna save you. Your teachers have lied to you. Your economists have lied to you. You can't buy back the block. Money is not gonna save you. When they brought us over here from Africa, we had wealth in Africa. And if the wealth in Africa didn't save us and prevent us from becoming slaves, what makes you think it's going to save us now? If the wealth we had in Africa didn't prevent us from becoming slaves, if the wealth we had as indigenous people in America did not prevent us from becoming slaves, because I imagine if we were already indigenous in America, we owned all the land over here. So if that ownership of that land didn't prevent us from becoming slaves and losing our identity and our nationality and our ethnicity and our culture, if all the wealth, gold, and diamonds in Africa didn't prevent us from becoming slaves, how is buying the block back going to save us? Our consciousness must be transformed. Our paradigm must shift from self-hatred, from envy of our enemy's world and our reality, from trying to be like our slave master, from believing white is right. Our standards of the value of our very existence has to change. If that don't change, we'll continue to kill each other, be jealous of each other. We'll be dog in a dog in a dog-eat-dog world. We need a paradigm shift. Because just because you bought the block don't mean you changed the condition. It's the same condition on that block. Because these blocks have been created by a social engineer, an enemy mind. A diabolical mind has created the infrastructure of your urban cities and your societies and your communities. They have been created by a diabolical mind. And that is your matrix. You can't own that because you don't control it. And you're not the housing developer who scientifically engineered the destiny of where that community who would live in that society would go. It's all the project. It's all a part of the white man's project. The matrix. So you have to get out of it. You have to get out of it. So you have to get out the block. And that's the message that I got from it. This King Noble Black Supremacy. Join my website, www.kingnoblepblacksupremacy.com.